So we're getting to know our script inside and out. You're already starting to think about the style, the visual style that you're going to bring to the project. And it makes sense now to take a step back and spend a few moments really breaking down and understanding the language of visual storytelling and what the elements of it are. And that's because that's the shared language that you're going to use to communicate what you're going for with your collaborators and, of course, with the audience too. So every frame of a moving picture is made up of various different visual and auditory elements that you can make choices about and have control over how those elements look and function. And it's the interaction of those elements that creates the sum total and the final result of the feel you want within a shot. So let's talk about what those things are. So obviously one of the first things to be thinking about is cinematography, right? Everything that has to do with the camera. So here, first and foremost, we're thinking about composition, right? What the image within the four borders of your frame looks like. So that's things like what type of shot is it? Is it small figures against a vast landscape? Is it really intimate close-ups of your characters' faces? What's the angle like? Does the camera seem like it's sort of looking up from the ground, or is it looking down from high up? What are the colors like? Is it color? Is it black and white? Are the colors really saturated and vibrant, or are they muted? And then also we're thinking about things like movement. Does the camera move, or is it very still? Now, hand in hand with cinematography is lighting, which is a huge sort of element of cinematography. And here we're thinking about things like, is the lighting naturalistic? Does it look like the world outside your window, or is it stylized? And in fact, it looks very different from what you would see if you looked outside. Is it brightly lit, or is it sort of drenched in shadow? Is the light harsh? Meaning, are the edges of the shadows very harsh, or is it kind of soft, even lighting? And then, of course, there's sound. There's two types of sound in visual storytelling. There is diegetic and non-diegetic sound. Those are kind of weird words that sound like they would mean complicated things, but they don't. Diegetic sound is simply any sound that can be heard within the world of your story. So to give you an example, in Jaws, anytime people are screaming and running from the water, that's diegetic sound because they are making that noise in the story and they can all hear each other screaming. On the other hand, John Williams's score, the da-da, 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 that's non-diegetic sound because the characters in the story are not hearing that. That's something only the audience can hear. So you've got these two types of sound, and of course, within that, you're talking about the dialogue, you're talking about sound effects, you're talking about score and music and how those things are going to interact and interplay in a shot. You're also talking about performance, which is another element. Obviously, what the actors are saying to each other, but also what the blocking is like, that is the movement of figures in a frame, and also the style of performance. Again, is it very natural? Or is it really stylized? Is it over the top in some way, or very particular in a way? And then you have sort of all the other design elements, costume and wardrobe, props, production design. Costume and wardrobe are obviously pretty self-explanatory, as are hair and makeup. But they can be really, really important to telling your story visually depending on what that story is. For example, if you're making a period piece, then obviously you're going to want to be really paying attention to the costumes, to the hair, to the makeup, to make sure that you are creating a real sense of the story taking place in the period that it's supposed to be happening in. Now, when I say production design, I'm kind of using it as a catch-all for all the other design elements. So it's your sets and what they look like. It's your props. It's essentially a way of saying, what is the world of this story going to look like in the frame? Is it the real world? Is it the same as the world that you and I live in? Is it a world that you're creating? And if so, what does that look like? It's another way to look at it is saying if you're shooting a scene in your character's bedroom, it's not just any bedroom, it's their bedroom. So what makes it their bedroom? Those are sort of the design elements that we're talking about. So to give you a sense of how all of these things work together and the types of choices you can make and how they inform each other, this is a really brief scene from the Silver Lake Badminton and Adventurers Club, which is a web series that I co-wrote and produced alongside director Matt Smith. And this show is a sort of spoof of film noir and detective stories. And so right away at the beginning of this first scene, you can see color is a big thing. It's shot in black and white because right away, Matt wanted to be able to tie it to the types of films that we were spoofing. Similarly, you can see the lighting. It's very sort of noirish, so pools of light with sort of there's sort of slashes across the frame, lots of shadow. The camera's on a canted angle, which was actually pretty typical of sort of the golden age of film noir. But then the performances are really big, over the top. You might even call them cartoony. And so that helps you know that you're not watching an actual film noir, you're watching something that's sort of commenting on film noir. So you can see how Matt made these choices when he was deciding how to shoot the scene that helped us convey what we had been trying to do on the page, which was to do a sort of fun send-up of these noirish projects. So now that you've got an understanding of all this stuff, what I want you to do is just pick a scene from a film you love, a web series that you're really into, and just watch it and see if you can identify some of these elements, what they are, and how you think they're working together, and why you think the director might have chosen to do it that way.